We say, Max.
Hey, what's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Different times right now. Obviously, love talking to you, but wish it was a little bit different. So, where do you live?
I live on Long Island in Huntington.
Okay, so you're kind of in the same boat as we are in New Jersey. So, I've spoken to some coaches and stuff like that. Different parts of the country are kind of opening up. So, everybody in your family safe and healthy.
Yes, they are. Yeah, you're breaking up just a little bit, but
Oh, okay. So, you can hear me good now.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
perfect.
So, why don't we I've spoken to some coaches, and why don't we start kind of where you were, what you said to the team, and like when this whole coronavirus thing happened. And did you some coaches said they didn't even have a chance to have like that last talk of the year with the team. Were you in that boat? Were you guys going on spring break? What was the team doing when this whole thing went down?
Yeah, so we had actually picked up our fourth win on a five-game homestand the Wednesday, the 11th, and I actually got on a flight first thing in the morning on Thursday to
Oof.
go down to Florida. We have over the years got a great connection in Canada. And there was an organization down there that I was going to see their team play on Friday. But on Thursday, I went down also to see the junior national team. And I got down there, I got to the ballpark, I knew some scouts. One scout told me, hey, just heard LSU is not letting their bus leave for their weekend series. My associate head coach and my other assistant were up here. They were like, hey, you know, a lot going on. First thing we heard was our conference, the America East, was going to shut everything down until April 3rd, I think it was. And then by 4 o'clock, I'm getting another text from my coach telling me, I'm watching the junior national team play the Blue Jays in Dunedin. And by 4:20, my Jim Martin, my associate head coach, is telling me NCAA has come out. They're canceling the College World Series, and it was just in a matter of hours. We went from a win the day before, finish up a great homestand, getting ready for opening conference to less than 24 hours. The season was over. I caught the first flight I could back home that night. Uh, our athletic director held a department-wide meeting at 9, and I was meeting with my team in our team room at noon to just kind of take in and discuss what was happening. So
so at that
that's
so at
kind
that
of
point
how that 24 to 36-hour period went.
Yeah, so at that point, everybody on the team already knew that like the season was canceled. It was going to be a lost season.
Correct. Yep. Yes. They were aware that I remember telling him I think I started off by saying to the team, probably this is one of the most difficult times I've ever had addressing a team, uh, except, prior to or since 9/11, when 9/11
Mm,
happened, and I gathered my team together to talk about that. So,
great point. Great point. Yeah, different times. Well, why don't we take a step back and go over kind of your beginning, your early kind of childhood, where you grew up, and what kind of baseball meant to you at an early age. Was it always kind of your first love, or did you grow up playing other sports as well?
sure. So that's a question. That's a dangerous question to ask a 62-year-old man, isn't it? Take up the whole might take up all our time. But I'm a New Yorker through and through. My parents grew up in Manhattan in Hell's Kitchen. Uh, in 19
I think I lost you, Coach.
First love, you still got me?
I got you. You said you said it was a dangerous question to ask a 62-year-old man, and that your parents grew up in Manhattan in Hell's Kitchen, and that's where it kind of froze on us.
Okay. All right. So then the first 4 years of my life, Brooklyn, can remember the address of our building, Avenue I and Flatbush Avenue. Then my parents decided they were going to move out to the country, buy a house. And so we went east to Suffolk County, East Northport. And two more sisters came along, but me and my brothers, my parents made sure we were all in sports. Probably the first organized sports I was introduced to was Little League Baseball, and played everything. Then midget football, played basketball, wrestled, pretty much did everything. But in our family, the number one sport, because my dad growing up in the city was a big roller hockey player, and they didn't live far from the old Madison Square Garden. So we were huge Ranger fans. Got introduced to, we played a lot of street hockey, but we played roller hockey. And then finally, when I was in junior high school, got on the ice. And so that kind of became my number one sport. But I was, played football up until high school, but hockey was really king. And I went on to Cortland. I played varsity baseball, had a good varsity high school career. Played.
What year did you commit to go to Cortland?
Yeah, so I graduated high school in '76, and 1976, and then I went up to Cortland really to play hockey. And back then there was a freshman baseball team. Freshmen pretty much played freshman baseball, and I played so much baseball all my life. I went out for the team. I made it, and the head coach liked me and said, "Make sure you come out for the team next year." And baseball ended up working out more than hockey did in college, and that's kind of what took me, to my college graduation, and then on to my professional career.
Yeah. So in college, you play in college. Was there a thought in college, obviously looking back on it now, like, hey, I want to coach baseball, or how do you get thrown into baseball? Because I know that, your story kind of, you coached high school baseball. Like, how do you get thrown into the high school baseball circuit and coaching? Did you want to be a teacher? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, so I go to Cortland. Most people know Cortland. It's a big phys ed teacher school, kind of a jock school, if you will. I went to school, and halfway through, I was a psychology major. But I was like, maybe, once I was playing sports, actually a big influence on me and going with coaching, was my varsity baseball coach, my college baseball coach, Bob Wallace, Sparky Wallace. I could just remember watching him every day and what he did, and I was like, I would love to do what he does to make a living. And so that was always in the back of my mind. But I got a degree from Cortland in psychology. They didn't have adaptive phys ed back then. So I got into a program that was run by New York State because of my psychology degree and athletics background. I went back to my old high school as a adaptive phys ed teacher within this program within the state. And money ran out quickly, but but my high school coaches and teachers, they were great to me. They were like, yeah, assist me here, help out here. And they let me do everything. I was doing, modified football and helping out with junior high basketball. And then the varsity baseball coach asked me to help him out. And so, yeah, once I started coaching, yeah, that was really what it's going to be for me the rest of my life.
That's awesome. So you're coaching high school, and then how does the Stony Brook job come about? And at this time, I know it's like kind of late 80s, like 89, 90, and then the Stony Brook job you took over in 91 from what I saw. And it's not a great program at that point, which obviously we'll get to you building the program, but like, how does that job come about? And are you kind of like, I don't know if I want to take this job? What's going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, it was actually the opposite. So let me just take you quickly through my high school coaching career. So So I'm looking for a full-time teaching job. I get a full-time teaching job actually in teaching social studies at St. Agnes High School in Rockville Center.
Hmm.
This is before they closed Maria Regina High School and Holy Family High School, the diocese. Um, and, Holy Family is now St. Anthony's High School. And Maria Regina became St. Agnes Rockville Center because they moved St. Agnes from Rockville Center up to Uniondale. So I taught and coached there, and then we moved to Uniondale, and I was there 3 years. St. Agnes Uniondale only made it for 3 years.
Hmm.
The Marianis brothers, who run Chaminade, they came in to run Kellenberg, and so I was there for 3 years. Varsity baseball coach. But what really helped me a lot, I mean, immensely, was because we were a Catholic school. Um, we were allowed to have fall baseball.
Hmm.
We did not have the restrictions of a school district. So I basically was like, I'm going to run this program as if it were a college program, you know, uh, within limitations. But so we had fall baseball. We'd go in and play the city schools. We go play all the city Catholics, Malloy and Cardinal Hayes, and we'd have a fall schedule. And and we were successful in the spring. So from having a fall program, a lot of really good baseball players started to come to go to school there because we were kind of going all year round. And because of that, I started actually getting interviewed for some college jobs as a high
Hmm.
school coach. And and so I get interviewed by Stony Brook, but ironically enough, Stony Brook, doesn't hire me, and I'm all set to go with another high school season. And it was, I think it was in February. It was probably Stony Brook's February break, and I get a call from one of the people who was on the search committee and says, "Would you still be interested in coaching at Stony Brook?" I was single, no mortgage, no kids. I was like, this is what I want. So
Hmm.
I'm going to go for it, and we'll see where it takes me. So I decided to take the Stony Brook. I left the full-time teaching and coaching position to take the Stony Brook job, which was part-time.
That is that's quite obviously the events, kind of the trickle events that happen. So the Stony Brook job, where it was obviously no brainer. You said you weren't married at the time, no kids, so it seems like you were looking for something more than high school baseball. I was assuming, right? That was kind of your next plan.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, it like I said about Coach Wallace, and it was always in the back of my mind that my career goal was to coach full time in college.
Okay, cool. So Stony Brook, what was kind of the reputation at that time when you took it over?
Yeah, so Stony Brook was D3, as you know, and for the D3s in the metropolitan area, a lot of times the D3s and T2s actually played in the same league. So, it was not the easiest for D3 programs to be going up against some Division twos at the time.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't the case when I got there. It was strictly Division three. We would play, Lehman, all the D3s in the metropolitan area. And so, they were an okay program. Had some good players, not great players, but I wouldn't say they were unsuccessful, but they had a ways to go to be uh, a winning program.
And your plan was to build that program up. I mean, any coach comes into any program, you want to do better than obviously you have been doing. So, what was kind of the game plan like recruiting wise then? That kind of got Stony Brook kind of, let's say, some pretty big name players. Like, what was your game plan coming in? Was it like, I'm going to run it like I ran obviously that high school program? Sounds like you kind of were a step ahead in high school. What were some changes you made instantly that you can remember?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So a couple of things come to mind. Um, you know, um, One of the reasons why maybe I didn't get the Stony Brook job in the first place, I was asked a question by the search committee. So what do you think you could do at Stony Brook? And I said to them, well, I think we could win a national championship. And and I meant it. And I think they were like, okay. And basically when I explained my answer was because, and you being a New Jersey guy, we might be familiar with this, but around that time and previous to me getting there, the New Jersey Division threes in New Jersey were winning national championships on a regular basis. And I was like, well, is the weather so much better in New Jersey? Like, what are they doing? What are they doing in New Jersey that couldn't happen on Long Island? If we make that same commitment, if I make the same commitment. So again, maybe that's why I didn't get the job right away. But then, once I got the job, as far as recruiting was concerned, I went right to what really has been the foundation of our program. From coaching in high school and being a Long Island guy, I knew a lot of high school coaches. I knew some of the better programs. The better programs, for example, Levittown Division was a powerhouse. They were right down the road from Kellenberg. We just go right down Hempstead Turnpike. We would scrimmage every Saturday with Levittown Division. The late Dougie Robbins was, he's an iconic and legendary high school coach. Their program was the best, and we would go play them. And so, I would go to Dougie or Levittown MacArthur or, the people I knew in Suffolk County. And, again, this is my personal bias, but I always felt the metropolitan area had great players.
Absolutely.
If players didn't leave to go south, we could be in the mix with anybody. So it was a matter of just, cultivating Long Island first. And that really was how I initially did it. And even to this day, we always first start in our backyard.
Yeah, don't want to lose anybody to going down south. It's like you might overlook a kid in Long Island and he goes somewhere and you're like, man, I could have had that kid. So that sounds like you kind of had your finger on the pulse early on, and it's the same today. So I mean, Stony Brook has had some big name players. I know, obviously, I think in '95 or 96, Joe Nathan gets there. Well, I mean, what did he do to the program? Was that kind of like your first big fish? I know I don't want to discount any players that have gone to Stony Brook, but that seems like to me and a lot of people, that's the first name that comes to mind when you say Stony Brook.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we've had, as you said, we've had dozens and dozens going into the hundreds now. I've been there 30 years of great players. But
yeah, absolutely.
Joe, Joe's resume is second to none. Six-time Major League All-Star. So, hopefully he'll make the Hall of Fame. He has a legitimate shot. So, an interesting story about Joe. Another thing that I did. So being a state university, I wrote a personal letter to every high school coach in the state of New York. And one of the high schools I sent to was Joe Nathan's high school, which was Pine Bush High School in Orange County. And the varsity coach there read the letter, and my college roommate and teammate was Jeff Masonette. He was also teaching in the district in the high school, and he was the assistant coach, varsity coach there. So I wrote a note. I said, "Hey, Wally, say hello to my college roommate, say hello to my college roommate, Jeff Masonette, for me." And he passes it, and he's like, "Mace, do you know this guy?" And so Mace gets in touch with me, and he goes, "Look, Matt," he goes, "we got a kid here that is unbelievable. He's the youngest kid in his grade, so he's a little undersized, but he's a great student. He's a great kid, and he's got an absolute gift on his arm. His arm is ridiculous. And he's not being heavily recruited because he's undersized right now." And I was like, "Jeff, look, if you recommend him, you're like my brother. So of course, if you recommend him, we'll take him." And that's kind of how, I would love to tell you that, I was beating the bushes, and it was just having, my college roommate, reached out to me, and that's how we got Joe. And Joe came in as a skinny, undersized freshman, and then he had a growth spurt, and all of a sudden he's 6'4", still throwing aspirin across the diamonds, hitting balls all over the place, and was our first breakout player. He was a Division I player, easily playing Division III baseball at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny, but it It's always the same story though with baseball and even softball for that matter with coaches and the 6 degrees of separation and how you land a player because you know somebody. Like it just always is fascinating to me. So obviously Stony Brook has moved up the ranks as far as from going from a Division III to obviously independent to Division II to now obviously D1 program. What was was that always the game plan to move up? I mean, it seems like that's a dream for any university to be D3 then go all the way up. Was that the game plan going in?
Yeah, I went in there just trying to make this the best program I could. There was a time there where when we started to have some success, and although I was, still young, early 30s, it was still like, okay, how long can I do this part time? I actually interviewed and got a full time offer, but Stony Brook counter offered, and that's when things started to change. But specifically to your question, so I'm like the poster boy, right place, right time. So in Division III, and we do well. Actually, that '95 team you mentioned before, we just had our 25th anniversary of going to the NCAAs, Stony Brook for the first time. So it was an amazing team. But right man, right spot. The president at the time, Shirley Strum Kenny, she was like, a university like ours should not be playing Division III,
Absolutely.
just Division III athletics. So that's when the transition from Division III to Division I happened. And because at the Division III level we had success, and then once we transitioned to Division II, the success continued. A lot of winning, a lot of great players getting drafted, players getting signed, and the winning continued right into Division I. So again, I kind of was thankfully President Kenny decided to go Division I, and thankfully a lot of really good players kept coming to Stony Brook, and we kept winning.
Awesome. That's great. So I know that I think for a year you guys were independent, right? Was that kind of tough being independent? Because I've had some coaches on that have also experienced where they've been independent. They're like, that's the toughest thing to be an independent kind of conference.
Yeah. So what might have been what didn't make Division I quite as independent, quite as difficult, was for a short period of time there, we had several schools transitioning as well. Binghamton,
Okay.
Albany, New York Tech was a Division I that really didn't have a conference. Post didn't have a conference. Pace didn't have a conference. So we kind of put together almost an alliance. I wouldn't necessarily call it a conference, maybe whatever term. So we were able to put together a schedule and a league amongst ourselves, and that made it a heck of a lot easier. What was maybe more difficult was when we were division transitioning in Division II to one, was we played in a conference, but we weren't allowed to play in the postseason. So here I am with teams doing amazing things. Like in '99, our last year in Division II, we led the nation in home runs. We had terrific teams. Again, we had guys that were getting signed and drafted, and we did a lot of winning, but they couldn't go on and play in the NCAA tournament and play in any postseason play. So that was probably the most difficult part of the transition.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of those players obviously going on to the next level, what could have been in the postseason. So let's talk about obviously 2012, what Stony Brook is. Anybody that says Stony Brook, they always, obviously there's rich history. Joe Nathan, 95, 99, you guys leading obviously the nation in home runs like you just said. But 2012, I posted the photo of, Stony Brook. Anybody have any questions? Everybody's knows exactly where they were, what they were doing when Stony Brook made it in 2012 to the College World Series. Describe that year. Was that did you, obviously looking back on it, you could say, yeah, we knew all along, but was that just a special group of guys? We could do something special on day one. You kind of knew this team is a special team.
Yeah. But thank you for asking that question. It's always great that people say the things that you just said. I knew where we were. I remember
Everybody
You
in
know,
this area, and even people that I have an uncle that lives in Georgia that used to live up here. He goes, "Oh man," he goes, I exactly where I was in 2012, what I was doing, what restaurant I was eating at, because they just remember that College World Series because a local team was in it, and they're like, "Wow, this underdog Stony Brook was going toe to toe with LSU," is what everybody remembers.
yeah, absolutely. So because it was, I always answer this because, and I truly mean this, it is difficult to find the words to either describe the accomplishment or the feeling of what that team did.
Mm.
Um, but that being said, did we know that we had that type of team? No, I don't think the World Series ever crossed our mind. However, what what I do remember was we had actually, so a lot of those guys came in 2010 as freshmen, and that team as freshmen won a conference championship, and then we went on to to play in a regional with Coastal Carolina, College of Charleston, and NC State,
Mm.
and we went into that regional, of course, as a 4 seed, like all Northeast schools are. And we went toe to toe with Coastal, who, when you hear Gary Gilmore talk about his 16 team,
Yeah.
when he was being interviewed, he would often say, well, arguably the best team I ever had was the 2010 team. And they actually were a late inning home run. South Carolina hit a late inning home run to knock them out of the super regional. So they had a great team. And then we got our first regional win. We played NC State and beat them. And so we had gotten the taste. So that we're there in 2008. We're there in 2010. And so now we've got some regional experience. We've got a regional win. We've got a better feel for what it's all about.
Mm.
The 11 year, we arguably had as good a team or better, and we had a record to show it. We just, we stubbed our toe. Credit to the teams we played in our conference tournament. Maybe if somehow we didn't win the tournament, went 2-2, we went 1-2. To get an at-large bid as a Northeast school, despite where we were, RPI wins, it just didn't happen. And then the 2012 season happens, and a lot of our better players played in the Cape. I want to say we had 5 or 6 guys make the Cape Cod All-Star team.
There you
Travis
go.
Jankowski is the MVP of the Cape Cod League. I mean, our guys are playing with the best players in the nation and going toe-to-toe or outplaying them. And so, we had a great group. We had a talented group. The season, we had an unbelievable year, and I can remember when we're getting ready to our practice before leaving for the regional. Once we found out where we were going, I remember telling the team in the outfield, I go, you know what? I really think that we could go very, very deep in this tournament.
Mm. You called it.
It was just because of our experience and their confidence, and I mean, they were, I think when we left Miami, well, actually, the night we won the Miami Regional, Travis got drafted in the first round. The next day, we had 6 other guys that got drafted. I mean, there were 7 draft picks on that team. We had younger guys that eventually got drafted. We had 12 guys off of that team that eventually got drafted to play professional baseball. So it was an unbelievably talented group. They had great chemistry. They had incredible confidence, resilient, tough. What a lot of people don't understand about that run to Omaha was in Miami. We won that first night. We beat Miami, unbelievable. You're beating one of the greatest college baseball programs ever, and we lose the next day to Central Florida, and we had to win 3 elimination games to win that regional. And then we, now we're going to LSU. We fly right from Miami to LSU, and the LSU, the atmosphere, it's everything you've ever heard about. I don't know, anybody who's had the experience, it's just the best ever. And we had the 2-day game. That first night we're going back and forth. It's tied, rain delays. The game goes to the next day. We lose in like 20 minutes. A game that took 2 days on Saturday. We end up going to a half hour later. We're playing in another elimination game, and as hot and as humid a Louisiana day as you'd ever want to see. And we end up winning the game, pushing the if necessary, and then we win the if necessary. So to get to Omaha, we had won 5 elimination games.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, that just speaks to the type of toughness, mental, physical, and resiliency of that team.
Absolutely. And in 2012, it almost kind of not like, I mean, you grew up in the Northeast, so obviously there's always a notion that like Northeast baseball isn't as, let's say, as the UCLA, the Vanderbilts. Like, describe obviously your conference, because it is a competitive conference, and like anybody that said like, oh, Northeast, like obviously during the winter they're hitting inside, they're not playing out on the field, they're playing less games throughout the year. Like that notion, obviously in 2012, kind of got smashed because here comes Stony Brook, a Long Island school. That made it to obviously the College World Series. Did that obviously pump you guys up? And obviously after that, did people from maybe West Coast and South maybe want to come to Stony Brook? Did that help in any regard?
Yeah, actually, certainly our run to the World Series, clearly put our program on a national level. You've mentioned it a few times, but it put our university on a national level, and that was great to see because we were such a young university, but we're an outstanding academic institution, and it is it's a great place. It's a great place to get your education. Long Island, especially where we're located on Long Island, is an awesome campus, and there's so many positives about it. But I mentioned the Canadians, so we had that pipeline kind of going. Some junior national players, some of the better players from basically the province of Ontario, a program called the Ontario Terriers, and we had actually 4 Canadians on that World Series team. And then prior to that, my associate head coach, Joe Panucci, and Mike Marin was my pitching coach on that staff. He's at Old Dominion. Joe is now the head coach at East Tennessee State. So when Joe got there, it's like, how can we expand our recruiting base? And I saw something advertised as under the radar. They advertised it as an under the radar showcase in Southern California. And that's where we got Tyler Johnson, who ended up being our number 1 pitcher. And then we were like, well, let's go down to Florida. And we actually saw Travis Jankowski, a Pennsylvania kid, but we saw him in a showcase in Florida. So we had already kind of gone out and gotten some Southern California guys. We got some really, world-class players out of Canada, some guys we saw in Florida, and then, of course, again, the foundation of the program, the Long Island kids. So.
Absolutely. So it sounds like day one in Stony Brook, it was strictly Long Island, which today it still is Long Island. You don't want to overlook anybody in obviously your area, but now it seems like Stony Brook will go to Canada, will go to Florida, and who knows, maybe you'll find a Long Island kid at one of these showcases, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What we do again is we do our due diligence on the island. Then, of course, we're a state university, so we want to canvass the state as best we can. But then we go across the Sound. We'll go into Connecticut. We'll go in. They play great baseball in New Jersey. We have right now in our program 8 New Jersey players, with more coming. So, but then we still have, we still go out and we'll see what's out there nationally, and thankfully the 12 team has helped us on a national level. There's some name recognition, and we continue to get Southern Cal kids, and but other kids in other parts of the country as well.
Absolutely. So I know you said that your associate head coach and the pitching coach left, and obviously you've replaced them. Was that kind of tough, like knowing that obviously they were going to go on to kind of do their own thing and stuff like that? Did you kind of know that was going to happen, or what kind of goes through your head during those times?
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, Joe Panucci, who's at East Tennessee now, and Mike Marin, the pitching coach, who's at Old Dominion as a pitching coach. They were with me for a couple more years, and Joe actually was with me even longer than Mike. Um, you know, obviously, for me, although I've had some great programs, great schools that have reached out to me about their programs. It always just seemed right to what I built at Stony Brook was where where I should be. Um, but these guys got opportunities, and like I said, they didn't. It wasn't like they were out the door in a couple of
Yeah.
months, or I want to say Mike was with me for 2 more years, maybe even 3, and Joe for 4 for sure, possibly 5. So, but I never wanted to see them go because I think besides what I said about our players, and these guys were great recruiters and had a great eye for talent, but there was also a synergy amongst us as a coaching
Mm.
staff. Um, you know, um, we each helped each other, and I think as a staff, we were allowed to do things that were synergistic, and we needed a lot of synergy along with all those other things to get to Omaha. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tough when coaches leave, tough when players leave. So what kind of like for Stony Brook, you've had quite a few name guys and some guys that obviously, have went on to the next level, played professional ball and then maybe went on to coaching and stuff like that. How do you get them ready for kind of that next level? And is it tough maybe for like a Stony Brook guy, like, hey, he'll be here for 3 years and then maybe he'll go to the draft? Is that kind of in the back of your head that might happen with some Stony Brook players?
Yes, absolutely. I am very proud of our player development.
Yeah.
I think that's why really good players, come to Stony Brook. Really good athletes. And we still understand who we are, and what I mean by that is that blue chip guy that's going to go, that's getting recruited by the SEC, or one of the better ACC schools, or one of the better Big Ten schools. That's not necessarily the player we're going to get. Not that we don't recruit them, but when it all comes out, maybe not. But you know, we're great at projectability. We're great at developing players. Our facilities allow for that. My coaches and how we coach allow for that. And so through our development, we expect that we're going to get guys drafted out of our program, and we plan accordingly and we recruit accordingly, and that's held true. I mean, we haven't had a World Series run. I mean, we're coming off a championship a year ago.
Yeah.
Went to the tournament, but we had a couple of guys drafted off of that team. Had some guys drafted the year before, so so a lot of good things are happening, and it really all starts with your players, and great families, great kids, great athletes that decide to come to Stony Brook to to allow us to help them reach their potential, whatever that might be.
Yeah, and has the recruiting game, it's had to have changed since you were doing it in 91 to what you're doing now. I mean, obviously social media has come about, and even when guys are committing, you probably went from guys who were maybe senior year, even after senior year, to now guys who are eighth grade. Has that obviously been a learning curve where, it seems like you're one step ahead of obviously the recruiting game. Has that been a learning curve?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a learning curve. Certainly, more so for me than my most recent Division One assistant coaches.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we used to recruit seniors. Everybody used to recruit seniors. Now you're way behind if you're not knowing what freshmen are coming out in the summer and going into their sophomore year. And so yeah, the whole recruiting process is sped up. Again, I think that we're diligent about what we do. My assistant coaches are great, where I might not be as social media savvy. They're on top of it, and they're doing everything we need to do. And we feel like we're as competent and as experienced and as prepared as anybody else when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got to ask the question. I got to give credit where credit's due. Johnny Mock, he set this up. Our Rawlins rep. He's an absolute savage, but we still love him. What has it meant to obviously Stony Brook being one of the premier, obviously Rawlins schools out here? I mean, has that been? Do the kids love it? Do you love it? Is that a big piece in kind of recruiting too? Like, do the kids go like, "Hey, what gear do we use here?" Like, we know that obviously this is a school that gets gear. Do we get Rawlins gear? Is that a question that's asked in recruiting?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the guys are recruiting. They want to know what kind of bling. They want to see the bling. And Rawlings is to me the absolute state of the art elite company out there when it comes to our uniforms, our equipment, the bats. Our guys love it. We are so appreciative that John reached out to our program and thought that we would be a good partner. They're unbelievable partners. Johnny, as I just said, he's an animal. He gets after it, and our guys are so appreciative of the quality of the stuff, but also the quantity. There's there you'd be hard pressed anywhere in the nation that Rawlings as a partner is not doing everything for our program that any of the Power Fives are doing. So can't say enough great things about Rawlings and John Monken.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I'm sure glove day is a big day, right? Usually, a lot of the coaches say they give the kids the gloves before either I think like Thanksgiving or Christmas break, that holiday break, and then they go home. It's a big day there for all the kids. They're like little 10, 12-year-old boys getting all excited over the gloves.
Yeah, well, there you can include. Not that I've gotten a new glove, but anytime I got a new glove, even now, I would be like a 10-year-old again. That was one of my greatest birthdays when I got my own catcher's glove. So
Awesome. Well, Coach, I appreciate you hopping on with me, talking during this time. You have a fan here in Stony Brook. I'll be definitely checking you guys out next year. And I hope your family and you stay healthy and safe during this time. And if you're ever in the North Jersey area, when things kind of settle down, stop and I'd love to meet you face to face.
yes, I definitely will do that, Max. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak to you today, and be safe and stay healthy to you and your family as well.
Absolutely. Be good.
Okay, see you, Max. Thank you.